So my name is Sam Carlton, and if you'll give me a minute to get set up here, I do web development, front-end web development. Oh, there we go, good to go. I build websites for a lot of churches and ministries and other organizations, just normal businesses and stuff like that. I love building things that are just anything interactive with color and video, but it's taking a stage beyond what normal web developers do, and integrating more of the design process, like professional design process, into the website itself. I love just like making things dynamic and not just using like pixels to design, but actual like scalable vectors and the going the step beyond that normal developers would go. So what I'm going to talk about is how to design a website that designs itself. And what's fun about that is there's a little bit of process that this already happens with. So our normal kind of way we design websites right now is we have kind of 3 stages before we get where we produce it. So first we have the guide, the branding guide, and that's all the colors and that's all the typography and things, and you have a creative director or a design team or a graphic designer who comes through and they kind of set all those rules or what those are going to be. And so what we do from there is we go into the next stage, the mock-up, but we have to mock up every page usually. Like we mock up that first main home page, and we establish all the branding, and then we mock up like the contact page and all the other secondary pages, and it takes a long time. And then finally we get into the code, the fun part where the real work is done. I mean, sorry if there's any designers in here, I don't want to offend you guys. We get into our code editors and we build the thing and we get it running on servers and web browsers, and we do our tests and all that fun stuff. So the idea of this is that what if we could get rid of this part? Or what if we could not completely get rid of this part, but make it a lot easier? Because when you have 30 unique pages, you have to build 30 unique mock-ups. I mean, you can just kind of shoot from the hip and guess what's going to happen, but if you're working for a client or somebody who's expecting a certain result, then you have to guess the first time, otherwise you're going to have to spend more time going back and fixing it. So what if we could get these two sites, the branding guide and the code, to play together? What if the website itself in real time could just run from the branding guide and build itself? So how does it work? Well, I have to apologize to you guys. I actually didn't. I was planning on doing this with 2 hands, but we'll see what happens. I'm gonna have you guys do math today. So I hope you guys aren't too offended. We're gonna do a little bit of math, and I got to do it to explain kind of how this works. I need 10 cards here. Here, can you hand me 10 cards from that deck? I promise I'm not doing magic tricks. Just the first 10. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah, just hold the deck. Let me. Okay. Is this your card? No, it's not that kind of thing. Okay, perfect. So, I want you guys to think of your branding elements like a deck of cards. So let's take one part of the branding elements, the color scheme. So you have your set of colors. Let's just say red, blue, green, whatever you're using from your branding guide as your color scheme. This is your color scheme. You have 10 colors. So what if we could have the website pick a color for us or design a color scheme? So what that means is that we give the website the parameters of how we want to work in our color scheme, and we let the website decide which colors to use. But how do you do that? Like if you were a marketing guy, you would say like AI, but really it's just math. And so what we do is we have for those that don't code, in code, what we call this is an array, but it's really just a list or a deck of cards. And so if we want to generate a custom shuffle of this deck, then what we can do is we can source that from a seed number. So what that seed number is, it could be, let's say we have 6 as our seed number. So what we do is we just cut the deck at 6. And now we have a cut. Now what's cool about the cut, once you cut it at any point, you can do shuffles, and you can do the same shuffle, and you'll get an entirely different result depending on where you cut. So there's a deal. Every time you shuffle a deck of 52 cards, I think it's like 4 or 5 times, that arrangement of those cards has never been created before. No one has ever possessed that arrangement of those cards. That's how astronomically crazy the math is on the deck of cards, on how easy it is to shuffle them around and create variation from them. Also, mathematically, the odds are pretty much 100% that no one will ever also reproduce that same deck of cards, that same arrangement of those cards in history, no matter what. That's pretty cool. And so if you were to apply that to a design, you could get an essentially virtually random result. It's not actually random. It's actually based off of a bunch of complicated math that we won't talk about and we don't really care about. But you get that random result. So that works great, but what if your number is bigger than the amount of cards you have? So I have 10 cards here. What if my number is 12? Well, maybe I just subtract and then I get 2 and then but what if it's way bigger? What if it's 100? Well, there's this thing in math, and this is the math part. So I apologize, but it'll be fun, I promise. So there's this thing in math. It's this concept that's very complicated and detailed that we learned a while back, and it's called remainders. Have any of you guys heard of remainders? Good. Okay. So we do have probably some math doctorates in the room at least. So what remainders do is it's basically what's left over when you divide. But no, we never really used remainders in real life. It's one of those things that the teacher tells you oh, you're gonna use this in real life one day, and you're like, sure, okay, sure. And then we go into real life, and then whenever we divide, we always use the decimal points. If we're dividing change, we're not, I'm not going to give you, if we're dividing $11 and a half, and I give you $5, you're like, okay, wait a minute, what's going on here? We care about the little thing that comes off at the end. So, but for this case, remainders are actually really useful because we can take our bigger number, let's say we have 100 is our seed number, and we can divide this, let's say we have 113 is our seed number, we can get the remainder from this deck by doing a little special function. If you guys can actually try it on your phone. If you type in the search on the phone, if you do 113 and then the percentage point and then 10, it'll actually produce the remainder. So if we produce that remainder with that second number, we then get a number that is always going to be less than the amount of cards that we have in our deck. What that means is that we can always cut our deck. We always have a number that we can cut our deck with. So what we do is, again, we just shuffle it. So, well, what if we have a number that's not 10? What if we have 13 cards? Again, we're always going to have a remainder. We're always going to have a remainder that's less than 13 cards. So that's kind of the kind of mathematical secret way of how it all works. So how does this look like? So what this looks like when we take our elements and we pick them. So this is a slider I built, and so you'll notice if you see the number on there, I did not set any of the colors on this slide. These are actually picked by the computer based off of the formula, the method I just described to you. So the computer just takes the seed number, 34, and then takes the total amount of icons it has and gets the remainder from those two numbers, and then produces a color based off of, produces a color and an icon based off. So the computer is literally designing these on the web page in real time as it just figures out numbers. So like 48. Oh, that's a new number. That's so I'm going to do this icon number 7 or whatever it is. I don't even know the logic or the math behind it because it's just doing it on its own. I don't have to. The thing is I think in programming, like when you're doing computer stuff, you're supposed to know math. I don't. And so I just kind of like figure out tricks to just get around it and have the computer do the math for me. And that's one of those things. So I think Bill Gates said he would rather hire somebody who figures out a way to take a shortcut because they're always going to figure out how to do it better. All right, what do we got next in my notes? You guys don't mind if I'm checking my Farmville crops while I'm doing this, do you? So, it's skipping around. Okay, but how is this useful in real life? So like that's cool, you got all kinds of colors and in a slider, but how does that work when you're really building a for real website? What does that do? How does that help? Because there's sometimes people will have ideas and like, well, this is a cool concept, but how would it, when you actually have work and people are paying you money to do things, can you do anything with this? And you can. I actually have. So I do work with an organization, just a small organization in East Tulsa called Church on the Move. They're one of my clients. And they came to me with this design, this PSD, of these. They had a full page, but they also had these carousels. And the carousels were kind of interesting in how they were set up. They had this live text, and they had a photo, and then these icons, and then a number attached to each carousel, each kind of like initiative. And then they had a paragraph and all this kind of stuff. And so I'm like, this is fun. This is a colorful, fun design that's an interesting challenge to solve. So I started working on it, and it took me like a few hours to like get it tuned right. And I'm sitting there and like I'm proud of my work, and I look and I look at it and I pause and I'm like, what does that look like on a small screen? And I realized I had completely forgot about mobile phones. I'm sure I'm the only person who's ever done that. But so I started going through and like trying to plan how this would collapse and the layout would work on a mobile phone. And by the time I was done, it was basically a full work day of work. And I only had like 2 to 3 weeks to finish this project. And we had, for each initiative like this, we had 3 states. The carousel state, which is this. Let's see if I have it. The grid state, which is that guy, and then the full page state. So, and then also we had 22 initiatives. So that's a lot. That's a lot of work. And I was just like, I don't know. I cannot. This is impossible. It's like it's like when the boss comes and like asks you like, hey, we're going to do this crazy thing, and their vision is a little bit bigger than your ability. And I was just looking at it. I was like, this is not fun. And I remember one of my favorite bosses. One time, he told me he had some kind of thing that he knew I would like not super love to do, or that would be a little bit beyond what I'm normally doing. And he goes to me and he says, now an average web developer would say this is impossible. And I was just like, now I have to do it. No, I have no choice. I can't like, how could you say no? How can you not do it after that? An average guy, he would just give up, and I'm like, okay, well now I have to figure it out. So I was looking at this, and I just said to myself like, this is impossible, and I was like, and that's what an average web developer would say. So I have to do it. I have to figure it out. And so I was thinking through it, and I just like, when you have something like this, like a problem that's just way too big to solve, in the time you have allotted, you can't, like, it just doesn't make sense to freak out and like panic and try to work fast. It's just pointless. And so I just sat and I thought about it, and I mulled it over, and I was thinking through, and I started thinking through about this concept, this like shuffling concept that I did. And I was like, well, what if I could get the parts to just generate on their own? Like it would take longer than building one slide, but not much longer. These things, there's so much detail to them. I could just take the one I already built and tell the parts to just configure, like push a little this way, depending on the derived number we get from our shuffle. Also, I could swap out the colors. Now we're sticking with the same typeface, but I could swap out the colors. The other problem I have is that all of these have to be consistent. So we have to have yellow heading here, yellow heading here, yellow heading here. green color here, green color wherever, I think it's lower on the page, green color here. It had to produce a consistent result. And the cool thing about this kind of shuffling, or like what I like to call predictably random, this concept is it always produces the same result. You get a random result, but it's predictable. If you give it the same number, you're going to produce the same result every time, and which is great. So it's essentially, I'm handing off the design to the site itself. And so these were actually generated real time. So I literally did that. I literally just built the rest of them, because I had all the info, the titles, the text, and everything. Just built the rest of them and used these colors, but just shuffle them around, and using the predictably random method, and then build the rest. And that took 2 or 3 days. And then after that, I was basically done with a slightly less good result, because the site, it just designs on its own. It's not thinking of cool and unique ways to create new patterns. So what I did from there, now that I had all of them done, but at a not super great result, well, then I could start over and start building them from scratch. And that's literally what I did. So I filled in all of the work with a slightly, not super great result, and then from there, I only had to rebuild the ones from scratch. So I was literally able to work from this one and the second initiative and the third initiative and build and it was kind of like a combination of the site building them and me building them, like filling in the design for the site, so it almost kind of blended together. And if you guys want to check out like kind of the final result, the link is compassionoffering.com, and you can check that out and see what it looks like. So, but this is a real project that actually proves this concept can kind of work. This is just the first version of it. This is, from here you can go in a lot of directions with it, especially if you start breaking your color schemes into primaries and secondaries and accent colors. You start really getting into the nitty-gritty design of it. You could literally have, and that's what a designer is going to tell you. They're going to say like, well, we don't just want random colors, and that's true. You don't want always to just have colors picked at totally random. You want certain colors to be headers, certain colors, and I did actually modify some of the, I want to say algorithms, because I want to be a cool computer guy, but it was really just math. I just modified some of the math to say like, oh, if it's this color, try again, shift, shuffle them again, and don't do that. So I'm a little bit ahead in my talk. Okay. So coming around, the next stage of this, before I was thinking about this talk, I was like, I gave it a really big name. Like I gave it a kind of a name that's a lot to live up to, a website that designs itself. And I was thinking about it, I was thinking through the process of like, how do I deliver on that for Max? I don't want to make him look bad or anything. And I was like, well, what if I literally just built a website that designs itself? Like, how hard is it? Like, could I start? And so, and these were all of the deals. I did it. And so, if you guys want to reach under your chairs, and no, just kidding. If you want to go to oprah.netlify.com, there's a app you can load up on your phone. And what you do is this is the fun part. This is the part where I break the cardinal rule of presentations on websites. I'm going to run live code during the presentation. Do not tell Max. Okay. So what this is a website that literally designs itself. So I need a name. I need a really cool name from the room. What's your name?
Dashville. That's not my name, but this is the name that you give.
Dashville?
Dashville. Like Dashiell Hammett?
Dashnil?
Dashville.
Dash. I'm gonna type it one letter at a time, and you tell me. Dash.
S-P.
P?
I think C-H.
C?
Take out the P.
Take out the P.
C-H.
C-H?
Instead of Max,
Well,
E-L,
E-L.
that's it.
That's a Dashel. Dashel, this is your website. So what I like to call this website Timothy. It's not called Oprah. Oprah is just its house. It's where it lives. This website's name is Timothy. He is a design student, web design student. I don't know if you could tell, that recently graduated from design school. So his hourly rate is more than you could afford. But if you're nice and you give him his name, he might just design your website for free because he needs to build his portfolio. But don't tell anybody that. Don't ask him for a bunch of revisions. He wasn't born yesterday. He was born Saturday. So yeah. So this is a website. It literally. So what I did is it takes several different color schemes, and it does the shuffle algorithm on those to pick a color scheme, and whichever the winner is, it shuffles that color scheme and then builds your own custom color scheme based off of your name, Dashel. And then it also does a custom typeface, and it even does it has special deals where it'll do a different rounding for the boxes. It'll do different column numbers for the boxes. As much as I could do for this presentation. I didn't want to make it too complicated, but if you really wanted to dig into it for like a full project, you could really take this super far. Also, if you guys notice, there's this little cat in the corner. This is an open source project. Any of you guys can go and just go to this website or go to my GitHub or just click that icon, and you can deploy this and try it out for yourself. Also, I've tried it a few times. I believe you can deploy it from your phone if you want. Netlify is free, so all you have to do is like tell it where you want to host the repo that you want to fork it with, and it'll deploy and run on your own. You'll have your own Timothy to build websites for you as much as you want. And then if one of you does deploy it from your phone, let me know because I want to have bragging rights on that I did a talk where I had the audience deploy a website. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me see if I can switch back over to my slides if I didn't mess anything up. Okay. I'm way ahead of schedule. But do we have any questions? Oof. Let me make sure this mic's working. Okay, good. All right. Let's see, Lee, can you help me? Just pick a random person and ask them if they have any questions. We'll force a volunteer. Oh.
So for the work that you did on that church website, did you have designs that you had to hit that was randomized? Or did you pitch them like, hey, I can make this cool thing and it'll randomize it, but they'll all look great, but they didn't change over time, right? So it was just whatever it landed on, you tweak it until it looked close to a design they expect, or just they didn't care?
Well, they sent me a PSD, and I came to them. The great thing about meeting with clients, if you're honest with people, they'll accept it. And so I was honest with them of like, I know like we have a deadline on this, but like this is a lot of work. And even the designer, as they were handing it to me, they were like, I don't know, like if you need more time, you could just make all these things the same, or you could just do this if or whatever. Like they were trying to give me ideas on how to do it faster because they knew it was a big ask. And so they had already been getting that internally, but I was just like, I definitely can't build all these from scratch myself in the time, and so I still want to deliver for you guys. So I'm gonna try this. This is kind of a proof of concept, but it's your time. When you're doing work for a client, you just have to figure out how to deliver. And the cool thing is that they were cool with it. They had a locked deadline that they had announced for this project, so they couldn't move the deadline at all. But the solution was just swapping out colors. It would have been essentially the worst case scenario is it would have been the first slide that they had provided me, but with the color swapped out. That was the worst case scenario. So that's what I told them. Of like, the worst thing is I'll only be able to swap the colors, but all of them will be the same. And it was like, okay, well, it's better than nothing. And then from there, I was able to go back over them again and build out the custom designs because I figured out another like trick to work a little bit faster on top of that. Yeah, good question. Does anybody have any? Oh, this guy.
So with the website example you showed us, the color theme that you may have said this already, but I may have missed it. The theme with the theme of the colors that were shown on the website, was that truly, as you say, random, or was that somewhat dependent upon the input that the user provided?
It depends on how you like to define random. So really the answer is no. If in the very most literal mathematical sense, no, it's not random. But if you were to ask me how that got derived from the name Dashiell, how would you explain that to me?
I'm assuming you were talking about the card cutting. You were using the card cutting example.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's like so explain to me the exact math involved in getting from a name to this. It might as well be random, right? Pretty much. I mean, so in the layman sense, it's random. But it is if I go back one letter, it produces a different name. But if I enter the name again, it produces the exact same result. And that's the point. It's a consistent result. It's not like you could do the same thing by generating a random number and storing it to a database, but I'm a front-end engineer, and I don't, somebody that works with databases is probably rolling their eyes at me. I was like, yeah, you just do this one command, and it's like super easy. I'm just not super like efficient at that stuff. So I like to go around and figure out things through the front-end solution. But and what's cool is like even if I close this and make it go away, and then I paste in this URL again, it gets me the same result. So it's a consistent result. It's a predictable result, predictably random. So the random part is kind of, it's there's a word for that. It's not really random.
Deterministically random numbers.
Yeah, whatever he said. The guy that knows long words. What did you say? Dashiell? Neutrino. Yeah, I'm a front-end engineer, so I don't have to know long words. I don't have to be a smart computer guy. But that's let me know that word afterwards, and I'll see if I can like rename some of my things. I'll take it down, so that way I can like pretend to be smart in my next talk. But yeah, any other questions? Did that answer your question pretty good? Good. And and honestly, like any questions you guys have. So part of this is how do you build a website that designs itself? Like this is all on GitHub, so you can go and look at every little bit of code that I built for it and pick it apart and make your own, or just put your own colors and make your own website that designs itself. So we got any more questions? What do you think? Scratch your face scratch your face with your hand if you have a question. Okay, I think that's good for now. I have one more slide for you guys. If you guys have any questions, you can reach me at sam@sam.lc. Yeah, that is a real website. Or that guy Sam, just on most of the social medias. And yeah, so that's my talk. That's how to build a website that designs itself.